From the writing to the ratings, Doctor Who is terrible. Hello, and welcome to another Gameplay Cast's Post-Mortem, this time of the once great Doctor Who franchise. In this video, I'll discuss the main reasons why I think current day Doctor Who fails, and why it always will. Let's get straight into it and start with the hard R, the elephant in the room. The Doctor is a man. Yep, it's a crazy idea, but I do think there's a difference between men and women, and as such, I do not believe a woman can play the part of the Doctor. Equally, when I say a man, I mean he should act like a straight man, or an asexual one. Oh no, the horror. I can hear the furious bashing of keys already.
I can feel your anger.
Anyway, I think this is largely due to the grandfatherly nature of the Doctor and the masculine traits he embodies. To name a few, he should be stoic, charismatic, and at times intimidating. And while these aren't exclusively male traits, they are prevalent in heroic male characters. I mean, isn't it the mark of a strong man to be as dangerous as humanly possible, but always be in control? I.e., to have the power, but to not use it for wrong, which is almost a definition for the Doctor. In a similar vein, his companion should always be female. I know this wasn't really the case in Classic Who, but New Who benefited greatly from the male-female dynamic, and no, it shouldn't always have a romantic aspect, but it was an interesting part of each companion, watching them fall for this amazing man, and then slowly realising how dangerous he truly was, and how he could never actually give them what they wanted. Second, the Doctor is British. Cry racism all you like, but his Britishness appeals to the British public, for whom the show was originally made. He represents the eccentric English gentleman, the crazy old man making things in his shed at the bottom of the garden, or your sage old grandfather, who's always got the right piece of advice, and at times, that sad 1,000-yard stare. Modern Who also created further familiar parallels with the Time War and humanity's world wars, which were a big part in the history of all British families. In short, part of the Doctor's character is that he is stereotypically British. Moreover, as the show gained traction, the global audience became familiar with this character and was easily able to identify him as British, due to the aforementioned stereotype, which also played into the international image Brits were already known for. My point being that if you mess this up, i.e. the Doctor no longer seems obviously British, both domestic and international audiences will be confused. Third, no one can write good sci-fi anymore. The first 2 points may have helped define the Doctor's character, but it was the storytelling and writing that people stayed for. Much like murder mysteries, the Doctor was placed into situations, and rather than using violence or strength to escape, he used logic and intellect. There were moral dilemmas, tragedies, good, evil, and everything in between. All of this depth and diversity of thought, and yes, I use that word deliberately, required imagination, creativity, and intellect. At this point, I could probably draft an entire thesis on how bad current day writing is, particularly in science fiction, but I'll summarise it as this. There are a ton of unqualified bad writers writing shows in the West. Sci-fi is probably the worst affected, particularly hopeful sci-fi like Star Trek and Doctor Who, because in hopeful sci-fi, there is no perpetual victimization. Characters have to address their flaws or moral dilemmas and then face the consequences. This usually means they have to sacrifice, adapt, and take responsibility, not blame someone or something else. I don't think any of the writers we have at the moment get this, as it's antithetical to the modern trend of narcissism and victimhood. As a further note, subtlety is also a lost art, with most of the episode's messages and themes being delivered like a sledgehammer blow to the audience's face. I could go on, but in short, the writers on these shows are, well, stupid, and they, in their narcissism, assume that the audience is more retarded than they are. Hence, everything must be spelt out and obvious. No nuance or trust that the audience can think for itself and make up its own mind. Coincidentally, this is also why most of the plots we see are nonsensical and stupid. The writers genuinely think the audience won't notice, or possibly they just don't care. As long as they deliver their message with as much blunt force trauma as possible, they see their work as done. And finally, who is owned by the BBC? As a Brit, I can tell you that the BBC is so unbelievably broken and out of touch with British people. I do not foresee a time when the broadcaster will ever recover even 50% of its former glory. Its shows have become lame. It exists now only as a government and left-wing propaganda house. It will never allow Doctor Who to return to what made it great, i.e. masculinity and Britishness. It can no longer understand or even identify these things. I do think there is a decent chance that the IP could be purchased from them, but I do not think they would let it go lightly, and the current state of the show doesn't offer much of a value proposition for any potential buyers, as Disney is finding out the hard way. So we would need an extraordinarily rich fan to buy the IP, as they would be doing it for the love of Doctor Who, and not to make money. In summary, I think what I'm trying to say is that yes, the native British race has a distinct look, culture and character, or at least a stereotyped one. And while the mainstream media and progressive city dwellers might seek to deny this, for most of the UK and the global audience, these distinctions or stereotypes hold true. The alternative, a multicultural, diverse Doctor by definition, can therefore no longer be British, that being a distinct culture, and as such is no longer easily identifiable as being part of the established culture. Thus the character loses a vital distinguishing property, as well as the link to its roots and previous iterations. And don't think I mean simply skin colour here. True, a white British actor would probably find it easier to fulfil the role, but by definition, acting is pretending to be something you are not, so I see no reason why a black actor would be unable to fulfil the role, but it would be more difficult to convince the audience. Perhaps not crying every episode would be a good place to start. Anyway, I don't think we will ever see a successful Doctor Who, because of the reasons stated, and moreover, because a large number of people, including the BBC, no longer want to recognise and support British culture and legacy. And without this, Doctor Who is just a jack-in-a-box bouncing through time. So yeah, it's doomed. F*** Erebus.